accommodating the schedule change. Everyone, I'd love to welcome Meenakshi to the stage. I'm super excited about this presentation. Go ahead and take it away. You've got the mic.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alyssa. And let me know if you can see my presentation.
Yep. Yep. There we go. Screen. Awesome. You're good to go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the session. Thank you for joining. My name is Meenakshi Kaushik, and I'm part of the Cisco Emerging Technology Business Unit. And today I'm going to talk about why API security is a great first step, but you have to go to protect your enterprises beyond API security so that you can have a holistic security of your enterprise. So with that, let's get started. The agenda for my talk is as follows. There are three things that I'm going to talk about. One, I'm going to take a look at APIs and how the attack surface is evolving, and why in the application stack, API security is not a complete or the holistic solution. Next, I'm going to take an example of how you can extend API security with application security using Panoptica, a product from Cisco Emerging Technology Business Unit, as an example. And then finally, the third thing is that how can you take those integration points towards the entire stack? I'm going to present a solution which is worked on by the Cisco research team, and finally provide a conclusion. So with that, let's get started. So APIs are the way in which the enterprises expose their product. That's the explicit way they'll provide an API, whether it is through a user interface or directly through the APIs that you consume the product. And so that's the very essential step that you have to protect, because that's the easiest way to attack. However, as you can see in the app stack, there are other components. There is infrastructure, there is data, and the workload, which is the application itself. And even though they are not explicitly exposed, implicitly, the attackers can get in and attack these layers of the stack as well. So you have to protect this entire application stack. And this application stack is also evolving in the cloud native architecture in two different ways. One is the cloud native patterns, and then the second is the software supply chain. So let's take a look at those. So as far as the application infrastructure is concerned, the monolith application is now getting split into microservices in the cloud native world. And these microservices can run across multi-cloud. And even in the multi-cloud, these microservices have their own data. So not only are the microservices distributed, the data is distributed as well. And there is multiple entry points for the APIs. So as you can see, the attack surface has tremendously increased with cloud native architecture. Now let's take a look at the software supply chain. To make sure that enterprises can get up to speed with the velocity of delivery of new features, there is an automated software supply chain. So it starts with in the CI phase, where you develop a new feature and then go through the build and testing, push it into containers or registry, and then you do automated deployment. And in Kubernetes world, if you're familiar, it would be something like Argo, and you continuously do monitoring. And of course, you orchestrate into your favorite flavor of cloud native deployment. If they are containers, probably in Kubernetes deployment. So because there is so much increase in the attack surface, if we look at all the recent attacks that have happened, many of them have explicitly happened in the API. For example, your application hasn't, there is not sufficient authentication, authorization, security, and that's why data breaches have happened. But as you just eyeball through these different attacks, the other attacks have happened either in the infrastructure layer or on the data layer directly itself. So you have to go beyond API security to protect your holistic application. So this is just another slide just saying the same thing, that this is your supply chain and this is your entire stack. And really what we are talking about is you want to shift left sooner in the pipeline so that you don't even get into production. So even before the deploy phase, you should start looking at security. And yes, in the APIs, great first step, but definitely across the layers. And then ideally, you want to be able to correlate all of this into common security. So there has to be a risk management across all layers and not in isolation. And this will continue to look as I continue with the presentation. So let's look at what are the different layers of API security. I know that by now, given that in this conference, you may have taken a look at all of those, but I'm going to quickly walk through this. And also, we'll see it in a demo and then see how we can add additional layers to it and expand our security. So normally what happens is that as you develop the application, the first thing you do is develop an open API spec of how the customers are going to interact with your application. So in the CI phase, you can just scan your application for basic conformance against industry standards. And then once you're happy with the APIs, and then you push your application into staging environment. And in the staging environment, you don't have customer traffic. You don't have live production traffic. But you can perform first testing to simulate attack behavior to see if the APIs of the application are ready as they are exposed to be in production. And if everything looks okay, this is where you check in your after your CD phase whether am I satisfied with the riskiness of all the APIs which my application exposes, and then you go into production. And once you go into production, you want to be able to discover all APIs, not just from one application. We saw a single application consist of different microservices, but there are also many applications. And so you want to discover and catalog all APIs, identify blind spots like hidden zombie rogue APIs. Then you want to look at the risk of APIs, everything that you expose, that is your front door, as well as your back door. You may be going to PayPal or other different backend services, and you want the riskiness of those. And then finally, identify sensitive data in your APIs, the traffic which is passing through the APIs. So that then helps you decide what kind of connection rules you want to have. And then, of course, you don't want to just do you just don't want to do security, but you also want to do protection. So you want to detect threats even before an attack happens and be able to monitor and flag those, and then see if you can take action against them. So let's take a look at all of this in detail. So I talked about Open API spec and conforming to the Open API spec, and we'll look at the demo. The third-party APIs, which has now creeped into OWASP Top 10 API 2023, I heard it from our customers for a long time, where most of the enterprises are acquisitions. And you want to look at the health of your acquisition APIs or the partner APIs before you want to connect with them. So can we do that, something about those third-party APIs? So we go to reputable databases and share the riskiness of those APIs. So that helps you whether you should really call your third partner APIs or not. And then I talked about first testing. And then once we have done this in the CI/CD phase, we have a deployment policy. Currently, it's a single layer, so deployment policy is very straightforward. You can say, oh, if I have compliance condition of, let's say, high, or I have only high vulnerabilities, not critical vulnerabilities, you can allow my application into deployment. But as we add more layers to it, watch this deployment policy, because it has to account for different layers. Then I talk about now we are in production, and now we are identifying blind spots, risk exposure, and sensitive data. And I'll share that finding out sensitive data in APIs is actually easier because it's very structured in JSON format. I have a blog where I talk about how you can use machine learning, NLP like RNN to identify sensitive data, just as a side comment. And then the connection policies are also pretty straightforward right now. But as we add additional layers, let's take a more and more look at it. Right now, I just have API information. So there is not much I can do with connection policies. And then now we are doing the monitoring. We do active protection. So we look at anomaly detection. And this is all your good machine learning tools, what you can do to figure out authentication and authorization issues, and also all the conformance and to your organization policies. So with that, let's take a look at it in a product, and you can follow me along in this presentation. So I'm going to just talk about this product that I'm using, which is Panoptica. This is a security product for everything cloud native application. It allows you to protect container, images, serverless, APIs, coming soon virtual machine, and then shows you everything related to supply chain and software bill of material. And you can do visibility assessment, actionable insights, policy, and governance. And the 4 key use cases which our customers use is, as you saw in the CI/CD pipeline, is to shift your security.
Hey, Meenakshi?
Yeah.
Sorry, we have a strict no product pitching rule here at Apisecure. Can you make sure to generalize this and?
Sure.
Yeah, so, let's not talk about the product, please.
Okay. Thank you. So then in this case, the way I'm going to show this is in Panoptica.app, the different API security, the stages before I go into the next layer. So let's just go to, if you want to follow along, we have a synthetic data which is up here. And so let's just, let me just quickly show the, okay. So if you want to follow along, you can go to the playground, and you will see this kind of a dashboard where we have synthetic data. I have a little bit more data in my deployment, but that doesn't matter. So I'm talking about CI/CD. So what would happen in the CI/CD phase is that through a CI plugin, and which is simulating essentially the same behavior, I can actually, for example, I have a sock shop deploy. So I can do a front end, I can do a deployment of a front end application. And once I go into the front end application, then I can just upload an API spec. Obviously, we would be doing it in the CI plugin. And let me try to upload the spec. Just give me 1 second. I upload the spec. And so now you are in the CI phase. And so in this CI phase, what is happening is that this front-end spec, you are analyzing against some industry standard industry standard best practices. So as you can see, it has now this doesn't require passing traffic. This doesn't require anything. You just use it in your plugin phase. And these are the general, the different components of an open API spec. And you can see that this has the maximum vulnerability, right? So we can go and look at this vulnerability, and we can.
Meenakshi, I'm sorry, I have to stop this. We don't allow any product.
Okay. So in that case, let me just not go here.
Can you generalize?
Just,
yeah.
Yeah, I can generalize.
Thank you. I adore you. Thank you so much.
So yeah, so basically, what we have seen with what we have seen so far is that we were able to do application security. We were able to do application security, and that layer was just great. So we were able to do it in the shift left phase from the CI/CD phase, and then we were able to decide whether to go into production or not. And then in the production phase, we were able to look at these various aspects of the security, and then finally go into the then finally decide on the connection rules and continuously monitor it. But as we saw in the different layers of the application stack, this is great first step, but the attacks can happen at the other layer. So what if we wanted to add a second layer into it? So the second layer is the application layer. So what can we do in the CI/CD phase in the application layer? So in the CI/CD phase of the application layer, we can now test for app composition. So now we are testing for two things in the CI/CD phase. We are testing for application composition and also testing for API scan and first testing. So now when we are doing the deployment rules, we actually have an opportunity to look at these two rules. But before we look at these two rules, what really needs to happen is that we need to be able to correlate. So every time it depends on different environments. So for example, I'll give an example of Kubernetes environment. So if you have an API and if you know a pod which is running an API, then what you want to be able to do with the correlation is that in your CI/CD phase, in your workload, you should be able to correlate into the service through which.
Hey everyone, I apologize. So I just want to let the audience know that we make sure ahead of time